Hello, hello, everyone. I'm Amy from Amorini Designs, and welcome to another day of the Sew Party. I am so excited. Excuse me. I am so excited about this pattern. When I started designing it, um, I just fell in love with it. I'm not normally kind of a minimalist kind of person. I'm one who likes a lot of color and a lot of bright color. And so something with a lot of low volume is not normally what I do, but I love the little bits of pops of color. Um, so just to remind you, this is the pillow that we are making today. It is the confetti pillow. It is a super straightforward patchwork pillow, which makes it really easy to do. And the thing that I like about this one is it's a great opportunity to practice your patchwork sewing without a lot of high stakes stress, put it that way. So we are putting together a bunch of pieces to create this pillow, but because the background is mostly low volume, where those pieces all intersect gets a little bit, kind of. Okay, we have sound again. Is the sound here? Okay, it's showing me that there is sound again. It does look like the streaming, the internet is being a little bit crazy with us for a second, but it does show that there's sound. So if somebody would be willing to jump in the chat, sound is back. Yay. Okay. We're getting better at figuring out how to navigate all these little things. So I'm getting better and better at troubleshooting. That's the word we're going after. Okay, so we're troubleshooting here. I apologize. Thank you so much for your patience. This is going to be a really quick, straightforward project, but I just wanted to share with you, if in case it was lost in the sound, if you haven't already downloaded your confetti pillow pattern, I will put a link in the description where you can sign up for the newsletter and you will get this, as well as the skinny stripe foundation paper piece pattern. And all of the previous classes and these lives will stay up on my YouTube channel, so you can get back to them at any time. So we were talking about precision in our patchwork here, and I wanted to show you an example of a pattern where that precision does matter. So this is my Batty Pumpkin table topper pattern, and I wanted to show you on these bats, and I can't see exactly where things are showing up. Okay, but on these bats, you can see where the angles of the wings come together. Let's try to hold this up so we can see it. And so this is where having a really accurate 1/4 inch seam allowance is going to really impact how it looks, especially because this is something with a lot of contrast. You're also trying to make a shape. So this is one that would be for a more advanced piecer. I mean, it's still fairly beginner friendly, but it's one that, because you do need to make sure that you know that you can do an accurate 1/4 inch seam allowance, I would recommend a pattern like this for a more advanced quilter, not advanced, but a more intermediate quilter, we'll put it that way. Whereas on this one, because the low volume background, where those pieces all intersect, it's not nearly as obvious and it's not as critical if things are misaligned a little bit. So that makes this one a fantastic one to work on and get better and better at your piecing. So when it comes to patchwork piecing, there's a couple of tips and things that I've learned that really help with more accurate piecing. The first one is starch. So starch wasn't always my friend. Starch is now my best friend. I just buy the inexpensive stuff. I get it at my local big box store. You can use, there's Best Press and some other fancier starches that smell beautiful and do a really great job. But this is accessible, easy for me to get, and it works fantastic. So I recommend spraying and starching your fabrics before you cut out the pieces that you're going to piece. And this is true if there's small pieces or bigger pieces, but it's the smaller the piece, the more important it is that you starch it beforehand. And then especially if you're doing anything with diagonal seams, which this one doesn't have any, but if you are doing those stitch and flip corners where you're cutting and sewing on bias and all of that stuff, it's really helpful if you starch first. So spray your fabric with a light coat of the spray starch, press it really good to set that starch, give you nice crisp fabric pieces, and then go and do your cutting. So on this pattern where I'm using lots of different low volume backgrounds for this, I starched all of those pieces before I started cutting out. And then sometimes I found out, oh, I don't have enough, I need to go back. So then I would starch a little bit more, cut those out, and keep going until I had all of the pieces cut out. So I really do recommend starch. Starch is going to be your best friend. The second thing that is your best friend is if your machine has a 1/4 inch foot, it's a game changer. And I was really surprised the first time I had a machine that had a 1/4 inch foot, the difference that it made in how well I was able to piece. Because my previous machines would have the marks on the bottom of the stitch plate and that kind of thing. And even though it, it was fine, a 1/4 inch foot is so much better. And then the other piece with that is you just need to get to know your machine. So each machine is going to sew a little bit different. Each foot sits a little bit different, and how you interact with that is a little bit different. So the best thing that I could advise, and that's why this pattern is such a great one, is to just play with it and work with your feet that you have, work with your machine and the settings that you have until you find what works for you so that you can get that consistent 1/4 inch seam. That's going to make all the difference when it comes to nesting seams and getting corners to line up and getting your pieces to come out to be the right size. All of that is really going to be super helpful with this. So now that we have our tips in place, so the two big tips, starch and a consistent seam allowance. And if you have it, get a 1/4 inch foot. It's, like I said, I cannot overstate the difference that it made to have that foot on my machine. So now we're gonna hop over to start assembling our blocks here. So we're here with our fabrics. You're gonna have colored squares. You should have 25 of them. Oh, let me switch back really quick to this one and show you on this pillow. Now, there are some fabrics here that are directional, like the raindrops, but you'll notice that I wasn't too particular about the directionality of them. So I wouldn't worry about directionality or anything like that. Really, the only thing that you're going to want to pay attention to is the contrast between your colored squares and the rest of your low volume backgrounds. And in order to make sure that you can see these little colored squares, because they end up being 1 inch once they're inset inside the pattern, you want to make sure that you're choosing either tone on tone kinds of prints or something with, like this green one that has a very small scale print, so that you don't lose the color of the block of the piece while it's going. So that's my recommendation as far as fabric selection goes. The other thing that I was going to show you, when this is when it comes to layout, but while I have the pillow right here, now you'll notice that I did kind of diagonal rows with a rainbow arrangement. So red, orange, yellow, and they go up on the diagonal there, all the way down. And then after the blue, I started over again with the red. So when you get to cutting out, if you're going to do something like this, I have 5 different colors and I cut out 5 colored squares from each color, and then it worked out to get the gradient all the way across across that pillow. If you are doing something, this next one that I'm doing where I'm going to show you the step outs from, and so then I'm going to turn it into a pillow to get ready for our Thursday class, which is going to be how to make the pillow back. It's just going to kind of be random colors. There's not going to be really a rainbow or an order to it. The confetti is just going to be kind of scattered throughout. And in that case, if you're just using scraps, you can just cut however many you want from each one, whatever feels good to you. So, all right, now that's being said, we're going to come back and we're going to start assembling our blocks. So we have our colored blocks, we have background squares that are the same size. And the first step we're going to do is just put these right sides together and we're going to sew on one side. Now, like I said, we're not really worried about directionality here because when it comes to arranging the final layout of the pillow, there's going to be a lot of different, you want to be able to rotate things and stuff like that. So if you're trying to maintain directionality, it might make you a little nuts. So I'm going to strongly recommend that you just let go of that and let this be just a fun exercise in patchwork. All right, so we're going to just sew these together along one side. And because of the directionality, because of the rotating and stuff, on this particular one, we are going to press seam allowances open. It's just going to make it so much easier, reduce the bulk, and then you don't have to worry about things fitting in together one way or the other. So you will press this seam open, and then you're going to have rectangles that are the same size as your 2 patch that you've just made here. And you're just, again, going to put those right sides together and sew along one or the other of the long sides. And again, pressing our seam open, you will end up with a square that looks like this. Now we're going to take this square and then we are going to get 2 more squares that are the same size, and we are going to create a 4 patch block. Let me open this. Let's see, I'm going to switch to here, and you can see me here. And okay, if somebody could pop in the chat if you are here still. I'm going to try switching back over to here. All right, let me see if we can arrange. Okay, you're still there. Okay, if I come to this, can you see, is it black for you, or can you see the, can you see the, it's black, okay. Let's see, we can get this to refresh. All right, well, here's what we're gonna do. I'm just gonna show you this from up front. Okay, have we settled down? YouTube is not receiving. Let me see what's going on here. Okay. It was showing my signal was great. This is why we love okay, you seem okay. Okay. All right, we're just going to keep moving forward as we are now. Then we will get better. All right, so we have our one square with the color in it. Let me try switching back and see if it's finding that again. No, still not. Okay, we're just going to go like this. All right, so then you're going to take one square and you're going to put the two right sides together. And then you are just going to sew along one side. Now, this is the part where you need to pay attention to this, where your colored square is. So we have our two squares right sides together, and you can sew on one or the other of the sides that have the colored square, but you want to make sure that whatever seam you're doing includes the colored square. So we are eventually wanting to get our blocks to where that colored square is in the center and it's surrounded by the low volume backgrounds. So you want to make sure as you're piecing these two squares together that you either sew on this seam or you sew on this seam to make that two patch. Then you're going to take your other two squares of the same size and make a second two patch block. So they are going to look like this. So here is my two patch with the colored square, and then here is my two patch of just the background squares. So then you're gonna, again, put those two right sides together. And this is where you want to pay attention to how they are nesting. So I'm gonna hold this up here. Hopefully the camera can focus on it right here. Let's see if we do this. Sorry, the camera is reversed for me, so it makes it a little tricky. All right, so what you're gonna do is where these two seams come together on both pieces, you wanna make sure that they lined up exactly. One way I like to do that is to take a pin and then you put the pin through the seam. See if I can hold this up where you can see it. All right. And then, oh, we almost had a focus there. And then make sure, turn it over and see it's not lined up right there. So then I will adjust my second one and get that pin through the center of both seams to make sure that they're lined up perfectly. So you'll line up those two seams, put a pin through it. And again, you want to make sure that you are sewing this seam on the side with the colored square. So don't sew this seam down here, sew the seam up here, if that makes sense. Okay, again, we're trying to surround our colored square with background fabrics. So you're just going to line those up, sew across this seam, and then you are going to end up with your block. Now again, pressing those seam allowances open. So then you will end up with 25 of these blocks. And then the final step is to just arrange them into 5 rows of 5 blocks and sew them together. But one of the things that I wanted to point out, so I'm going to show you, you know what, hold on one sec, let me grab this felt pressing mat because this might help us hold up multiple blocks at the same time. I'm just going to stick a pin in them so that they'll stay. Okay, so you have these 2 different blocks and you can see that the colored square ends up in one of the quadrants of these blocks. So when you go to lay these out, I like to alternate and vary which quadrant of the 4 the colored square is landing in. And that just adds some variety and interest to the final pillow. And that way they're not all lined up together. and you can create just a little bit more visual interest. So let's see if I can get this in a place where I can see them. All right, so you can see like this one is on the bottom right corner of this one, and then this one is on the top right corner, or yeah, right corner. See how it's like up and down, and then sometimes it's a little bit further, sometimes it's a little closer. So it's just, yeah, it's a really subtle difference, but it creates just that little bit more interest to make it feel like confetti, which is supposed to be random, it's supposed to be chaotic. And so that's going to be your other trick here. So I like to lay out all 25 of them together, look at the balance and the distribution of the colors, especially if you're just doing kind of a random look on it. You want to make sure that you don't have a whole bunch of one colors located in one spot. And then I do just go around, and again, this is where you want to be able to flip them and turn them, and that's why letting go of directionality is super helpful, because then you can get them to be arranged just how you want them. And that's it. So you're going to sew together your rows. Now, when it comes to sewing the rows together, I do find it helpful to sew this whole row together and then press the seams all one way, then sew the second row together and then press the seams the opposite way, so that when you go to sew the rows together, those seams are pressed in opposite directions, and that will make it easier to nest than when you're nesting two open seams. And because by that time you have them laid out, you know which direction they're going, then you can go ahead and press the directionality into those seams once you're sewing the whole rows together. So make sure that you are pressing really well, and then get all of those seams, because there are a lot of seams. If you look at the back of one of these blocks, there's quite a few seams in here. So it is helpful once you get everything sewn together to go ahead and starch it again, give it a really good press, and then you can go and quilt your whole project. I just wanted to point out how I went ahead and quilted this. I did in the ditch of the blocks here, and then I used this line between the colored squares, and I did down those in the center. So you can see that each square has those 4 lines, and that ends up quilting all the way around those colored squares too. So it's a really simple way to quilt it. I mean, obviously you could do free motion quilting, you could add whatever you want, but just the straight line quilting makes it super easy and straightforward to do. So once you get this all together, quilted, one other thing that I just wanted to mention, what I choose to do with my projects like this, where I know for sure it's going to be turned into a pillow, the backing fabric that you use for your quilt sandwich for the front of your pillow, you're never going to see it. So this is a great time to use up scrap fabrics, really inexpensive muslin, different things like that, where you're not using your great fabrics for the back of a pillow that you're never going to see. So that's going to be inside the pillow, so you won't ever see it. So, you know, you can save your fun back fabric for the backing of the pillow and just use whatever inexpensive fabric for the inside. So what will be behind this quilt sandwich, that's just what I choose to do, a little tip for choosing those fabrics. So if anyone has any questions about the assembly or anything that got a little bit confusing in there, if you want to go ahead and throw that in the chat right now. Again, I want to thank you so much for joining in with this sew party. We do have one more class where I'm going to teach my hidden zipper pillowback method, which I love so much. So that is going to be Thursday morning at 10. Hopefully we'll continue to get better and better at troubleshooting technology so that it can be even more straightforward. I feel like we're making improvements each time. We can handle it a little better, but we're still working on some things, obviously. So thank you so much for joining in with the Sew Party. If you have enjoyed these classes, I would love to have you share. Amy, Notes from Past Amy is here, and she won the first giveaway. I sent you a message on Instagram. So make sure that you check your DMs for that so I can get these patterns to you. But I would love for you to share. These patterns are going to be free. There's no end, even though the party is going to end on Thursday. It's not going to end. But also, if you join the membership, where I share exclusive patterns each month, and I have classes just like this every month. We jump onto Zoom. I teach you tips and tricks. We go through different skills. It's a great way to invest in your mental health and your creativity, and to do so with projects that are fast and easy and fun so that you can enjoy them soon and you don't have to invest a ton of time and money in them. So anyway, thank you so much for joining in. I appreciate everyone being here, and I hope that you will feel free to pop on to Instagram and A. Maroney Designs over there. And if you have any questions, if you're getting going and you run into some issues, please don't hesitate to reach out to me and let me know. I'm more than happy to help in any way that I can. I love teaching and I love sewing, and I love, I love connecting to myself through creativity, and I love connecting to everyone else who feels the same way, who connects to creativity in the same way that I do through fabric and thread. So until I see you on Thursday, have a great day and happy sewing, my friends, and we will see you at the next one.